In Istanbul, amidst the quiet of a world on pause, I discovered a resilience. It wasn't just about becoming a parent, but about the universal dance of hope and uncertainty that binds us all. Hello, I'm Casey. Our journeys shape us, especially the monumental leap into parenthood. I invite you to share your stories as I share mine, in the hopes of finding that thread of commonality that runs through all of our diverse experiences. The swelling of ankles is not just a physical change, but a symbol of the load we bear for the ones that we love. A rite of passage into motherhood that echoes the stories of women around the world. And then the day comes. The rush of the hospital, a whirlwind of emotions, and that final push into parenthood. In those first moments of holding my son, every challenge, every fear, and every joy was distilled into a single point of connection. I'm about to delve into some deeply personal experiences, touching on some sensitive topics. It's perfectly okay if you choose to skip this video. For those who do stay, I hope my story offers comfort or a sense of connection. I'm making this video in response to this comment. So thank you for your interest in my story. After living in Istanbul for a little over a year, my husband and I decided it was time to grow our family. October 2020 brought us the news that we'd been hoping for. But as we soon discovered, the path to parenthood is anything but straightforward. It was a journey that tested us in ways that we could have never imagined. Despite the universal nature of pregnancy, there's a remarkable diversity in how it is treated across different cultures and healthcare systems. Good or bad, we were able to get an ultrasound only 6 or 7 weeks into the pregnancy. It's very early and the heartbeat is faint. We must be cautious and prepare for the worst. Those weeks of waiting were a test of our strength, of our ability to hold on to hope in the face of uncertainty. We did everything we could to stay positive. Weeks go by, and we finally see the doctor again. I have good news. The heartbeat is much stronger now. That moment, hearing our baby's heartbeat was strong was a victory. It was the first of many hurdles, but it taught us resilience. Eventually, we reached the point where we could determine the baby's sex. Eager for some certainty amidst the wild ride that is pregnancy, we opted to find out at the earliest opportunity. The results revealed we were expecting a boy. I half-jokingly attributed my relentless morning sickness to adjusting to the surge of testosterone. Finding a doctor who spoke English was a relief. From our first meeting, our doctor was comforting. Living in Istanbul under the care of a Turkish doctor, I was introduced to a blend of medical practices. It was in the spirit of accommodation that she suggested we include a midwife in our birthing plan. Her recommendation came with a reassurance that the midwife was well-versed in both local and more familiar birthing techniques, and she would provide an additional layer of support and comfort during the labor process. Additionally, our doctor was proactive with a glucose test, uncommon in the local context, highlighting her commitment for thoughtful care. And discovering I had gestational diabetes was unexpected and daunting. For the rest of my pregnancy, I tested my blood sugar religiously to ensure my baby and I stayed safe. Gone were the days of indulging my chocolate cravings. Instead, my new companions were hard-boiled eggs and a relentless routine of pinpricks. There were moments where I felt like a science experiment, but every prick of the needle, every carefully chosen meal was a reminder of the incredible journey I was on and the life that I was nurturing. As I neared the 37-week mark, my doctor had cautioned that labor could begin at any moment. Yet, when I woke up to cramps in the dead of night, I was unprepared. I had never experienced Braxton Hicks contractions, so I was naively hoping it was just a false alarm. My husband and I cooked pancakes that morning, and he debated going into work. It was his last day, however, before he would be staying at home to take care of me and the baby. I had convinced myself that it was nothing, so I pressured him to go. But as the morning wore on, the pain intensified. By noon, the pain had escalated to a point where each step was a monumental effort. The simplicity of eating a sandwich became a battle against the wave of contractions that swept through me. Finally, my husband made his way home, and thankfully the hospital was only a couple minutes' drive. Reluctantly, my husband dropped me off at the emergency room entrance. There I was, standing alone just outside the emergency room, pain clouding my thoughts, and in that moment I was trying to communicate my urgent need for help in broken Turkish, and I had never felt so alone. Hamile, hamile, bebek, bebek, I repeated, hoping my words and gestures would break the language barrier and convey the urgency of my situation. When my husband joined me, his presence was a beacon of comfort. Then on to finding my doctor. Luckily, she was already at the hospital seeing another patient. Her presence brought a new sense of order to my reality. But that relief was short-lived when she examined me and delivered some news I had feared most. Well, he's ready. This is it. But it's too late for an epidural. You are too far along. My heart sank. The pain was unbearable, and the thought of me having to face it without relief was terrifying. I pleaded with her, but she began discussing the hospital's new COVID-19 protocols, and her words became a distant murmur as the pain surged, clouding my thoughts once again. And the next thing I knew, I was whisked away into another room. Miraculously, they had agreed to administer the epidural. I later learned that this was because I had had a recent COVID test at the hospital. Now, anyone who's gotten an epidural, you know how this is. As the needle pierced my back, I felt a paradox of sensations. The sharp sting of insertion, the strange numbness, and the underlying current of pain from the contractions. It was this dance between relief and pain. I spent a grueling 45 minutes pushing. That was one of the hardest things I have ever done. During this intense process, I was caught off guard by my midwife's technique. She exerted a surprising amount of pressure on my abdomen, which was not only intense, but also quite startling. This approach was unlike anything I had encountered in all the birthing tutorials I had watched as part of my preparation. And I remember thinking, this can't be right. Is this necessary? But in the haze of exertion, questioning the expertise of my professionals felt like ruining a lifeline. Looking back, I realized this was one of the most challenging moments of my entire labor. Not because of the pain or the fear of the unknown, but because this feeling of helplessness in the face of a practice that was so foreign and so intrusive. With each push, I felt a bond with countless women who had come before me, all sharing in this profound dance of strength and vulnerability. It demanded everything I had inside me. And then, in an instant, overwhelming joy washed over me as my son's cry filled the room. They briefly laid him on my chest before the room burst into a flurry of activity. The atmosphere changed with sudden urgency. My son was gently taken from my arms, and the focus of the room shifted towards a corner, the very corner I had spotted the incubator earlier. Then a new doctor swiftly entered, the urgency palpable even from behind the sea of backs before me. In that moment, despite the fear, I found a reserve of strength within me. I felt isolated, yes, but also fiercely determined. My son, who had been with me just moments before, was now in the hands of these dedicated professionals, all working fervently to ensure his well-being. And then the room cleared, leaving me alone in the bed, awash with a whirlwind of emotions. And yet, I held on to a sense of resolve. Two figures remained, focused on their tasks in the corner. Silence filled the room. Every second stretched out. The absence of my son and husband was immense. Yet, in this solitude, I clung to a quiet courage, waiting for the moment we would be reunited. Then, a team of professionals, including my midwife, entered the room. She quickly asked me how I was, then returned to the rest of the people in the corner. It seemed like they were having break time in my room. I felt invisible. I was a mere backdrop to the routine of the hospital. My role as a mother momentarily suspended in this limbo of uncertainty. When my doctor returned, her words were a beacon of hope. My baby was stable, and all would be well. The wave of relief that poured over me was profound, as if I'd been in this prolonged state of suspension, and at last I was allowed to exhale. The moment they placed my son in my arms, the world around me receded. There, in the quiet of my room, with my husband by my side, I found my center. The fear, the pain, the alienation, all dissolving, and this overwhelming love just swept over me. As we wrap up my story, I'm reminded that it's not just mine, but part of a larger tapestry of human experience, shared by all of us navigating these complexities of life and parenthood. And it's not just about becoming a parent. It's a testament to our shared human spirit and the capacity to overcome, adapt, and find joy in even the most challenging circumstances. Again, I invite you to continue sharing your experiences in the comments below, as each story adds depth and perspective to our shared narrative. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Let's keep sharing, supporting, and celebrating the strength and the beauty within each of us. Until next time.